Okay, good afternoon everyone, or good morning to some of our viewers here from South Asia, and welcome to this e-learning session on using MyAPNIC. Before I start, can someone confirm if you can hear me? Is the audio or video feed okay? Yes, okay, great. Yes, thanks. So let's get started. No sound? Maybe I need to speak up. Can you adjust your volume, Jay? I'll see if I can raise it up here. Okay. It appears some people can hear us, so Jay, you might have to adjust the volume. Okay, great. All right, so bit of introduction. My name is Vivek, and I'm with the APNIC member service team. I work as an internet resource analyst at APNIC. So my daily role involves assisting organizations with joining membership and getting resources from APNIC, such as their IPs and their numbers. After that, we're also basically the first point of contact for all matters relating to APNIC when it comes to our members or just the APNIC community in general. I also take keen interest in APNIC training activities such as IPv6 and internet resource management, so at times you might come across me assisting training team with these training delivery. Okay, thanks, Jay. Alright, so this session we're doing now is on using MyAPNIC. So it has specifically been designed for APNIC members who'd like to learn about how to get access to MyAPNIC and how to use the different features in MyAPNIC. So I'll go through the agenda or the overview for this session. So we will start with talking a bit about what is MyAPNIC, how it works. Then we'll move on to how you get access to MyAPNIC and what you need digital certificates for in MyAPNIC. After that, we'll cover some topics on the administrative features and resource management features. And then we'll finally wrap up with some useful tools that I'll show you and any questions you have. So I would like this session to be as interactive as possible. So if there's something you don't understand, please feel to type your questions and I'll try and assist you the best I can. Okay, so what is MyAPNIC? So MyAPNIC is a secure online portal that our members can use to manage their resource and membership. So when I say manage their resource, it's like IP address, AS number, Whois updates, resource transfers, those kind of things. And when I say manage their membership, I'm referring to things like account renewals, making sure the contact details are up to date, making sure the organization details are updated, things of that sort. Okay, so how does MyAPNIC work? If you have a look at this diagram here, you can see the client or APNIC members, they use their browser to access the MyAPNIC website. At this stage, you're required to give a username password to authenticate and log into the MyAPNIC server. And once you're in the MyAPNIC server, it interacts with various APNIC internal systems, such as the finance system. You need to use that to basically view your invoices, pay your invoices, or see the history of your invoices, things like that. You also have access to our membership and resource systems. So you need this for basically managing your resources, applying for resources, also managing your account, contact details, things of that sort. And lastly, you also get access to the Whois master. So basically if you do any Whois updates from MyAPNIC, those updates are instantly reflected in the Whois master, and from there those updates propagate into the different public Whois nodes, so that registration will be visible publicly in a matter of few minutes. So before we had this MyAPNIC system, all the interaction was done manually through phones, chat and email. So if you need to make any Whois updates, you would have to complete text forms and email them to us, and then we would process them manually for you. So this system has now fast-tracked that process and it's given you the opportunity to make your Whois updates instantly yourself. So it's good to know about these features. Okay, so we'll talk a bit about how to get access to MyAPNIC. So basically there are three different types of contacts that every APNIC accounts have. So there's a corporate contact, which is the main contact for the account. And then there's also a billing contact who's responsible for renewals and payments. And then you have the technical contact who's responsible for all technical matters like Whois updates or resource transfers. So the first person who can register for MyAPNIC from your account needs to be the corporate contact. So this corporate contact is nominated during your membership application process, and if it happens to be, say, someone like a director of your company who really won't be using MyAPNIC or dealing with APNIC, then it's better you nominate someone else as a corporate contact, someone who will be interacting more frequently with APNIC. So that can be done by completing the corporate contact form. Okay, so you can download the corporate contact form from this link, nominate the new corporate contact, submit it to us, and once this new corporate contact is nominated, they can register and get instant access to MyAPNIC. So only after the corporate contact has registered, then the other contacts, which are basically your billing and technical contacts, they can submit their registrations if they need access to MyAPNIC. So I'll just go through some screenshots on what the registration looks like. So the link you can see is myapnic.net/register. And the first few fields, the username, password, these are generic, you can make it up, choose whatever you want. But it's the last three fields, the full name, email, and the account name, that is important, and they need to match the corporate contact. So in this example, you can see the full name I've put is my name, Vivek Nigam. Now, if my registered corporate contact name is Vivek Nigam in APNIC, but say in this application I put something like Mr. Nigam, this application would fail because it will not match the records we have. So this is why you need to ensure that in the corporate contact registration, all the details you enter for full name, email, account name exactly match how we have the corporate contact details for this account. So once this registration is submitted, you'll get a success message with a link sent to the email, which is required to activate this registration. So when you click on that activation URL, you'll see the message that this account is now active or this login is active, after which you can log in and start using MyAPNIC. So now the process for the other contacts, that's billing and admin, is slightly different. The registration link is still the same. Once the registration is submitted, however, they'll get a different message which will include an authorization code. So this new registration, or this person who's registering now, needs to forward this registration code to their corporate contact, who will need to log into MyAPNIC and then decide whether to approve or reject this application. So this is the screen the corporate contact would see when they want to approve a registration. So they will see all the list of pending people who are trying to register. They will need to enter the authorization code for the specific registration. And at this time, they can select whether they want to make this person a billing or technical contact, and then either approve or reject that application. Okay, so in this case, we have approved that registration that was pending. Okay, now, if you happen to be a user or your organization has multiple accounts with APNIC, or maybe you're a consultant which works for different APNIC accounts, you can use this feature called multiple account access, where you can basically link your username to different accounts instead of registering multiple username and passwords for each account. So the process is fairly simple. Once you log into the account that you have access to, you click on the My Profile page. Under the membership tabs, you will see the account you already have access to. And below that is the form where you need to enter the new account you're trying to get access to. So you put the account name, your email, and add. And after this, it basically follows the same registration process. So if you're the corporate contact for this account, this activation will be automatic. You'll get the link and you can log in. If it's not, then you'll get the authorization code, which the corporate contact will need to use to approve. So in this example, you can see the account I was trying to get access to, I'm not a corporate contact, so I've been issued with this code, and I need to pass this on to the corporate contact for this new account that I'm trying to get access to. Once the corporate contact approves this, I'll get access to both these accounts. So when I log in, I can simply choose which account I want to manage. Any questions so far with the registration or multiple account access? No questions? Okay. Okay, so we shall talk a bit about what is a digital certificate, so why you need it in MyAPNIC and how you can get it in MyAPNIC. So the digital certificate, it's only required to do certain privileged functions or some sensitive functions within MyAPNIC, and those include voting during the APNIC member meetings. So APNIC holds biannual conferences, and we have elections for APNIC EC and NRONC. So if you're a member and you would like to vote during these elections, you need to ensure you have a digital certificate in your browser, and also you have the voting rights, which I'll show later on. Now, resource certification is also one of the relatively new features we have added to MyAPNIC, where you can digitally sign your resource records. I will talk more about that later in this presentation, but keep in mind you need digital certificate and resource certification privilege in order to use this feature. And then the corporate contacts also need a digital certificate if they wish to approve certificates for other contacts, in case that other contact wants to do something like resource certification or vote. Okay, so for corporate contacts, they have digital certificate access by default. So when they log in, they will see a Get a Certificate link on the left-hand bottom of the home page. Once they click that link, depending on what type of browser you have, that certificate will basically get installed in your browser. Once this is installed, you just have to restart this browser, log back in, and you'll have the digital certificate access. Okay, now this is the screen what it looks like if you're not a corporate contact, so say a billing contact or a technical contact. When they log in, they will see a button Request a Certificate. So they basically need to apply for this certificate, and once it's requested, it is up to the corporate contact to decide whether they want to approve that certificate or not. Now, if you do lose your certificate, like if you format your computer or change your browser and you need a new certificate, you can log into MyAPNIC, go to the My Profile page and select View Certificate Details. This is the page you'll see the button which you can click to request for a new certificate. So then this process is similar. If you're a corporate contact, APNIC will approve, so you can download it. If you're not a corporate contact, then this request will send the email to your corporate contact, so they will need to approve this request for you. Okay, so we will move on to the administrative and resource related features. The administrative features, it seems to be a section which is left out a lot by members, so it is important you understand the different features here. Mainly because APNIC will only correspond or liaise with authorized contacts. So if you don't keep these contacts up to date, you will have problem making corresponding with APNIC at some stage or the other. So just briefly, in MyAPNIC, if you click on administration, these are the different features. I won't go into each of them because they're very basic, but I can describe it for you. So Member details, you can view and update your organization details like your address, phone numbers. Contact details is the important one. This is where you manage the authorized contacts for your accounts. So who's the billing contact, who's the technical, and so on. The access list is used by corporate contacts to approve new MyAPNIC registrations. Billing history is to view and pay your invoices to APNIC. There's also a renewal membership fee calculator where you can calculate how much fees you pay to APNIC if you get some additional IPs or if you return some IPs. And there's a correspondence where you'll see a ticket number and the status of that ticket in case you have any open correspondence, email correspondence happening with APNIC at that time. Okay, so I'll show you a little bit about the contact details page because this is possibly the most important one in administration. So this is the view of your contact management page that a corporate contact will see when they access this page using a digital certificate. So you can see in the bottom here, the corporate contacts can add new contacts into their account. You can also see there's a delete button here where corporate contacts can delete some contacts if they leave the organization. They can also update email addresses if someone has changed the email. The other thing to note here is some contacts the deletes grayed out, and that is because these people are also listed as corporate contacts. So in other words, a corporate contact cannot delete or modify another corporate contact, but they can manage other contacts like billing or technical. So if a corporate contact has left, or if you want to nominate a new corporate contact, that needs to be done manually by completing the form and emailing it to the APNIC Helpdesk. Another thing to notice here is the plus buttons you can see next to some of these usernames, and that is used to manage the user's specific MyAPNIC privileges within MyAPNIC. So for example, if he clicked on the plus next to the user Anna, this is where you can see what privileges the user Anna has within MyAPNIC. So in this case, since she's not a corporate contact, she does not have resource certification privileges, she does not have voting privileges. But if as a corporate contact, I can give her these privileges by checking these tick boxes and updating this registration or updating this record, after which she will be able to use these features in MyAPNIC. Okay, so we will move on to the resource related features now in MyAPNIC. So this is the landing page you're seeing for the resource section of MyAPNIC. So you can view your existing resources, you can make Whois updates, you can request for additional resources. Then there's some transfer forms here where you can transfer resources to other accounts, receive resources, also apply for transfer pre-approvals. I'll go through these sections later, as well as resource certification, which I'll cover later. Now, before you can start using the resource-related features in MyAPNIC, you need to be aware of something else called the maintainers, which you see up here. So the first thing when you log into MyAPNIC is you'll have to go to the maintainer page and save your maintainer object in MyAPNIC. In case you're not sure what this is, so maintainer it's basically a Whois object, but it also has a password, and it is used to protect other objects in the Whois database. So in other words, every object in the Whois database is protected by a maintainer, and you need to know the password of that maintainer if you're trying to modify or manage that object. When you get your IPs from APNIC, the host master team manually create a maintainer for you and give you the password. So you're meant to log into this page and save those details. In case you don't have the password or you forget it, you can email the Helpdesk team and ask them to reset it for you. So once you have your maintainer and password details, you go to the maintainer page, enter them here and add. Once this is saved, you're then ready to start making your Whois updates. Okay, another feature in the resource is the one-click IPv6. So this is relevant for members who only have IPv4 and don't have IPv6. So if you're planning to get your IPv6, this is a feature you can utilize. You will see this big icon on the left which says get your IPv6 addresses. If you see that, that means you're eligible to receive your IPv6 for no additional fees. So you simply click on that icon and you will get some message about what's going to happen. This is basically describing the policy under which you're getting the resource and also what size IPv6 you're getting. So this one-click IPv6 policy basically says if you're a member with IPv4, you are eligible to receive an equivalent size of IPv6 without paying any additional fees. So if you happen to only have IPv4 allocation, you will only see this option for a /32 IPv6 allocation. And if you happen to be a member with only IPv4 assignment, you will only see this one. Now, if you're a member with both allocations and assignments in v4, you will see both options. So then it's up to you to decide which block you want. So once you click on it, this delegation will be made into your account and you'll be able to see this IPv6 in MyAPNIC straight away. Okay, so we'll go into some more of the resource features here. So the first one is view and manage resource. So this is the page where you can view all the existing resources you have received. So your v4, v6 and your AS numbers. If you click on one of your existing resources, it will actually take you to the next screen where you can manage your assignments or sub-assignments from within those resources. So for example, in this case, this is the block we have received from APNIC /23, and this is where I can see all the assignments I have registered from within this /23. And again, you have two options here to register them as public and private. Difference being public is visible in the public Whois and private is not. You can choose which one you wish to use, but either ways you should register your assignments because that is how you demonstrate to APNIC how you have used up your IP addresses in case you're planning to apply for more. Okay, so moving on to the Whois updates. So if you select the Whois updates feature here, you'll see you can add, update, delete, or use the bulk updates. And in the drop down of your object selection, you can see all the different type of objects you can manage from this link here. Now, some of these objects are not used as often, so you don't need to be too worried about them. But I can point out the important ones you need to use are domain for your reverse DNS. You might need to use inetnum, inet6num for your assignments, possibly person role objects in case you have new people joining your company who look after your IPs, as well as route and route 6, which is required to show the BGP announcements of your prefixes. So I'll go through what the templates look like for all the different add, update and delete. So in this case, I have selected route as an object and I'm trying to add this object. So this is a typical template you will see. For the route object, you need to enter the prefix, your prefix that you're trying to announce, some description, the origin AS that's announcing, and submit. So it's as simple as that. Provided your maintainer checks are passed, this object will be created. So that's how the add feature is used in Whois updates. The update is similar. The only difference here is you need to first search the object you're trying to update. So of course, if you're trying to make some updates, that object needs to exist in the first place. So you search that object. Once it brings up, you can make the changes, you can add new attributes if that's what you're trying to do, and submit the update. Likewise for delete, if you're not using a route, you select route, you search that route object. Once you find it, put in some reason, things like you're not using it, and hit submit, and that will delete this route object. So that's how you use the different features, and from the drop down you select which object you're trying to manage and make those updates accordingly. Okay, we shall talk a little bit about IPv4 transfers. So this is a very active topic at the moment because a lot of members are in need of IPv4 addresses because they have reached the final /22 that they can get. Some accounts have a lot of additional IPs that they're not using, so they like to use this feature to transfer them out of their account. So we'll start from the first one. So transfer resource into another account. So you would use this if you have some spare IPs that you're not using and you're willing to transfer these IPs into a different APNIC account, someone who's still looking for IPs. So it's a simple form. This is what it looks like. You select what IPs you want to transfer out of your account. You give a reason why you're transferring it, something like you're not using them. Provide us the APNIC account name for which account you want to transfer these resources to, and then submit this transfer. So once this is initiated, automated emails will be sent out to the other account, so they will need to log into MyAPNIC and then receive that resource. So this is what the other account will need to do. After you have initiated the transfer, the recipient account, they will click on Receive Resources. They will see any pending transfers. So there should be one which you have initiated. So simply select that and hit on Receive. And that's how they will start the receiving process. Now, the IPv4 transfer policy, it requires the recipients to demonstrate their requirements for what IPs they're trying to receive. And to assist with this process, we have provided a new feature called IPv4 transfer pre-approval. So in other words, if your organization requires IPs, but you can't get them from APNIC because you have received your final /22, you can complete the IPv4 transfer pre-approval, where you basically demonstrate to APNIC how many IPs you still need, IPv4s you still need for the next 24 months. And once this request is approved, APNIC will update your pre-approval status in MyAPNIC. So for example, if your requirement for the next 2 years is /20 and APNIC approves that, when you click on transfer pre-approvals, you'll see a log that APNIC has approved a /20 pre-approval for you. And what that means is, in the future, once you find the source who's willing to transfer IPs and they initiate the transfer, when you click on receive, you don't need to then justify further to APNIC how you're going to use them, because you have got that pre-approval. And there's only some relevant transfer fees you need to pay, after which APNIC completes that transfer for you. Okay, so that's about the transfer pre-approval. And one of the last features I'll discuss briefly is the resource certification. So as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the new features in MyAPNIC, and this is a collaborative effort by all the RIRs. So the main aim for resource certification is to secure the Internet's routing infrastructure, so specifically the BGP routing infrastructure. And resource certification, it's based on the RPKI framework, or the Resource Public Key Infrastructure Framework. So basically, you use your private keys to sign your resource records, and then your corresponding public keys and those resource records are stored in a public repository, which is listed here. And other networks can then go to this repository to verify those resource records that you have signed to make sure they're legitimate. So the object you create using resource certification is called ROA object, or Route Origin Authorization. So using resource certification, you authorize some AS numbers to announce your IPs, and that's the name of the object you create, ROA. One thing to note here is these ROA objects, they have no relation with the Whois database, so you don't see them in the Whois database. These are using a completely different framework, the RPKI, so it's all stored separately in this repository. Okay, so I'll show you now briefly the screens you will see if you try to use this RPKI feature. So when you access MyAPNIC with the certificate and resource certification privileges for the first time, you will be asked to enable resource certification. So you have two options here. One is running it in MyAPNIC and one is hosting your own. If you wish to run your own RPKI engine, in most cases members will choose APNIC, so you simply select that and proceed. What happens at this stage is your key generation process starts, and this is when your private key is generated and your corresponding public keys are generated, which APNIC keeps. So the form you need to fill out for creating ROA objects, this is what the form looks like. It's a very basic form. You have the origin AS. It's similar to, say, a route object. So you need to provide us which AS number you have authorized to announce your IPs. Then you need to select what prefix you are using or which prefix you want to announce. So these prefixes need to belong to your APNIC account, and also enter a max length, which is basically the max length of the prefix you have allowed this AS number to announce. So if you have a look at this example, you have authorized AS1234 to announce your prefix, which is 6145.248.0/23 up to a max length of /24, which means either of the /24s within this prefix or the entire /23 has been authorized. You have authorized this AS to announce all those three prefixes. So once that is selected, you select add and you select commit, and that's how you will create your ROA object. Once this object is created, it will be visible in the public repository for other networks to use to verify if they are using resource certification. Okay, and to finish up, just some tools which you can access in MyAPNIC. This is under the Tools tab, which is the last one in MyAPNIC. The first few tools you'll see: sparse assignments, subnets, reverse domains. These are very useful tools once you're doing your IPv6 planning. So once you receive, say, your allocation /32, you would ideally first use the subnet calculator to do your subnetting at a higher level, like big subnets for your customers, for your infrastructure. After that, you would probably use the sparse assignment to actually start making the assignments to your customers, and the relevant domain objects if you're trying to create reverse DNS for your IPv6. The last few tools are basically more for network troubleshooting, so looking glass, prefix repos, so you can do things like BGP, looking glass queries, ping queries, things of that sort. And lastly, there's a reverse domain verification tool. So this one is used to verify if your reverse DNS is working. So after you register your domain object, you simply enter your domain object in this field and hit submit. At this stage, the APNIC name servers will do a search on what name servers you have provided and check that they are configured, as in they're providing authoritative replies for your reverse domain. Okay, so those are all the slides I have for MyAPNIC. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them. I can see, okay, Steve has some questions. Okay, yes, so your question is about the boundaries for IPv6. Well, if you know about IPv4, there are some fixed boundaries. There's a /2416, so you have that choice. When it comes to IPv6, it's fixed to 4-bit nibble boundary. So what that means is, if you have received a /32, which is basically the default allocation size, 32 is a 4-bit nibble boundary, so you can only register one /32 reverse domain. If you happen to get something like a /31, that is not a 4-bit nibble boundary, so the closest one is 32. So you can, in those cases, register 2 /32 reverse domains for your /31. Does that answer your question? Well, yes. Well, if you're assigning, that is up to you. You can assign 48s, you can assign 56 to your customers. but the reverse DNS from APNIC's end can only be done at the 4-bit nibble boundary, which means you can only register that 32 domain object. From within that /32 domain object, you need to then configure your name servers accordingly in order to cater for your customers. So the configuration needs to be done in your name server end, not from the APNIC domain object. And this is there for specific reasons because of the depth of IPv6 tree. If you have a look, for example, if you have a 32 and you're trying to give 48 to customers, and if you plan to register /48 domain objects, you can calculate how many domain objects you're going to have. So that's 48 minus 32, 2 to the power of that. So it's going to be a lot of thousands of domain objects. So to avoid these type of things, the boundary has been fixed to the closest 4-bit nibble boundary. That's right. The only time you would register a /48 is if you happen to get a /48 assignment directly from the registry. So if you have a /48 assignment, then yes, you will register one /48 domain object. But if you have received a /32 allocation, then you cannot register /48 domain objects. You can only register one /32 domain object. Does that answer your question, Steve? Okay, thanks for that point, Jay. I will pass that information to the training team to update the server name. No, to Steve's question, the tools I went through, they're actually only available through MyAPNIC. So provided you have an account with APNIC, you can register and get access to MyAPNIC and then use those tools. Well, some of the tools like the Looking Glass, you can just Google them, and there are lots of ISPs who provide those tools, like Hurricane Electrics. Off my head, they provide a lot of the Looking Glass tools, but those subnetting ones, sparse assignments, they are specifically only there for APNIC users or MyAPNIC users. Yes, that's right. No problems. Anyone else has any questions? Okay, thanks, Cheryl. So that survey is updated now, Jay. Yes, these slides are available. I believe if you complete that survey, after that you'll get the links to get these slides. If not, you can send a request to training@APNIC and they'll be happy to help you out with these slides. All right, thanks. So just to wrap up, there is an APNIC Helpdesk feature we have on our website. In the future, if you think of any other questions relating to APNIC or APNIC services, you can access it through apnic.net. Go to Services, Helpdesk, and you'll see the icon. And that's how you can chat with us. So you'll get to chat with either me or one of my colleagues, most likely, and we'll be happy to help you out. And yes, that is all we have for this session. So thank you all for attending, and hopefully see you in some other training in the future.